Hello and welcome to ICF Minnesota's Meet the Coach, where I share more about our ICF Minnesota chapter members, as well as the type of coaching they offer. And we get to learn more about the different coaching styles that are represented within our chapter. Our coaches will be featured every month, and they are published on both our YouTube channel and our Catalyst newsletter, which goes out to all of our members, as well as people who have attended our events in the past. If you wish to be featured on an upcoming newsletter and or on our YouTube channel, feel free to reach out to me. My name is Jenn Espinosa-Goswami. I'm the communications co-chair here of ICF Minnesota. But today I would really love to introduce you to Nikki. Welcome, Nikki.
It's good to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here today. Now, we're going to go into a formal introduction of you so we can learn all about the goodness that you bring to the coaching world. And then we'll jump right into the questions. How does that sound for you?
Sounds great.
Perfect. So just to share more with you about Nikki, Nikki is the founder of Courageous Roots Development, which is a leadership consulting firm that partners with leaders who are ready to engage in the work of exploring their inner nature for the sake of becoming who they are meant to be and contributing what they are meant to do within this lifetime. Sounds very exciting. I can't wait to learn more. Courageous Roots blends the research and theory of vertical development, appreciative inquiry, and the Enneagram. We're going to learn more about the Enneagram during today's interview to offer rich development experiences that evoke actionable insights for senior leadership teams. Now, a little bit more about Nikki. Nikki is known for making difficult concepts easy to understand, asking questions that evoke new insights, and masterfully coaching senior teams to navigate hard topics productively. Now that sounds like a difficult work to do. So without further ado, I'd love to share with you, Nikki Shultz. Welcome to Meet the Coach, Nikki.
I'm pumped to be here.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So the first question I always ask our coaches is, what brought you to coaching?
Oh. The best way I can describe it is answering a nudge. My closest friends have been coaches for a long time. When I was at Target Corporation, I led leadership development professionals in the organizational effectiveness team. And so I was surrounded by it, got glimpses of it, but for some reason at that point in time, didn't feel a pull to do it right then. And it was a February, I think in 2018 or 19, it was just a moment of like, and it's time, which I'm happy I did, because that was the last year of the University of St. Thomas program, which is now Center for Coaching and Organizations, which was a life transforming program for me.
Awesome. So I'm hearing that you came from a corporate background and you had seen glimmers of how coaching could impact people within your sphere of influence. And that's
20 years. 20 years.
We have a lot of corporate folks who can resonate with that.
Yeah. I love it because that every coach's background offers a unique perspective. And bringing that perspective, I think, is really important to our clients.
Awesome. Now, you are the creator and founder of Courageous Roots Development. So tell me a little bit more about your company and why you named it that.
I love this. So I have always had a pull towards nature. You and I have had conversations about how much fun I have canoeing in the Boundary Waters. And I really believe that almost everything that we can learn about how we develop and how we grow, we can find in nature. So a simple example is the diversity of nature is what makes nature really healthy. And we know that when we actually look at systems. The reason why I named it Courageous Roots is because so often we look at development and growth through the lens of just strengths. And so a lot of times I think about it as like a tree. The canopy of the tree is moving towards something, moving towards light, moving towards purpose, vision, strengths. It's the expression of whatever the health and strength and size of what's underneath is. So we don't ever see a huge canopy tree with little bitty roots, right? But so often we focus on just what's the expression, and that's really enjoyable work. And the reason why I call it courageous roots is because doing root work, which is below the surface, takes courage. It's really, really, really hard work to be able to go into the uncertainty. When we grow roots, we hit rocks. We can't see where we're going. And so it's really scary. And so choosing to do that type of work takes a lot of courage, but it's the necessary work that we need if we want to actually grow into a beautiful, healthy, strong tree for the sake of others. And the other reason why I call it courageous roots is because there's different tree systems that are considered single organisms. And so these trees, in particular, like redwoods and aspens and birch, all of these types of trees, the strength of their root system is dependent on the other trees around them. And so when I'm starting to look at adult development and how we grow, I see the same parallels that we see in nature. And that's another thing that I'm really passionate about in coaching, is that for a long time, we have really focused on one-to-one relationships in coaching. And yet when I look at the history of humanity and nature, we grow best when we're in community. So it's something that's really on my mind, is how do we bring people into community doing the work together, which is different than having somebody kind of caretake me, but just doing it together. So
I love that description you have of the metaphor of the tree and how the roots underneath support the development and growth of the tree, and how that ties into systems and the work you do in a team or group environment as opposed to one-to-one. And that leads us to our next question is, who do you serve within your coaching practice, and how do you best serve them?
Who do I serve? The first way I think about it is I'm not interested in trying to convince people of the value of coaching, or convince people that there's a different way to think about things, or that none of us have arrived. The people I serve are the people who have the animation within them that they know something can be different. So that's the first, is really intentional about that. The second is I'm very interested in serving systems, so in particular teams. And so while I do one-on-one coaching with people, it's in the context of the system, because of, back to the example of how trees grow, I believe that we will grow stronger, faster, and more sustainably when I do that as a team. And so the kind of people I work with right now are mid-sized companies, where they're not trying to fix a problem. That's the other thing. We're not coming in because like everything is broken, although that has value, and that's usually when people engage with coaching. But the clients that I serve today are the ones who are in growth mode, who see what's possible for them, but who can sense that they need to grow in how they see the world, how they see themselves, how they engage with each other. And so working with teams, executive teams, to grow that capacity together from a place of growth, not a problem.
Interesting. And I'm really fascinated by how you bring in the idea of systems and how they kind of drive the growth and potential within these teams that you're working with. I don't have a lot of experience with executive coaching, so perhaps you can give us a little insight into the types of challenges that executive leadership teams might experience if they're not feeling the pain of we need to fix something, but they know that they're ready to grow within their potential. Like, what are some symptoms or signs of that when you're working with clients that they are ready, and what are some of their challenges in terms of executive leadership teams?
Executive leadership teams. I think the biggest challenge is that people don't know what they don't know. We don't know what we don't know. And the history of leadership development and coaching really informs what people know today. And the reason why this matters is because when when I'm working with teams or executives, the way they have experienced development is really through the lens of what people in vertical development spaces would call horizontal development. It's building skills. So how do I give feedback? How do I listen better? It's the actual skills. But what we haven't paid a lot of attention to is building the capacity where those skills can land. And that's what we're talking about with the vertical development. And so the biggest challenge is just getting people to see that there's a different way to be, and that we don't just keep on going after the skills if we don't have the capacity. Sometimes I'll use golf as an example. I could give you all of the skill building how-tos in the world, but if you don't actually have the capacity and the understanding of how things work together to implement it, it doesn't do you any good. But what I have found is sort of this pivot is the first is patience and being a guide for organizations. And so instead of going into like, let's try to sell something, coming in from the perspective of how do I show them something that they don't know as it relates to how humans grow. The second thing that I've started to really notice is working with just one senior executive who has some sort of influence or power in the organization, and working with them so they can drop breadcrumbs into their organization that starts to open their eyes to different things. And that can be in the form of like working together one-on-one and being like, hey, we might want to share this article or this video based on what's happening. But it's a long process that takes a lot of patience because people just don't know this field yet, which is why I'm really passionate about bringing adult development into the light, because I think it would open people's eyes to stop thinking about coaching and development so much from the perspective of we got to fix something, and into the place of what's possible.
I like that. So you mentioned that the first way in which you work with them are the challenges. They don't know what they don't know. And then you focus in on an individual who perhaps has more influence over driving the content and the understanding of the team with underneath this person. And that's really interesting how you approach that from your perspective. So thank you for sharing more about that and some of the challenges that are involved within the work. Now, what is something, I know there are lots of things to enjoy about coaching because we don't enter into coaching because we have a lack of passion for it. But what do you really love most about your coaching work?
What I love most at this moment in time in this conversation, what's coming up for me is being with someone as they meet a new part of themselves. And nurturing, discovering that part and creating more.
Mm-hmm. You're frozen.
Jenn.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me, Jenn?
I can hear you. You're just frozen. Can you hear me?
No, I can, and you're frozen with me.
Yay!
We're back! The land of Zoom. This is another thing that I have fun with clients, is like, this is life. And I really think that this kind of stuff is like being with people, as like life doesn't go perfectly. And it's like, yep, here's a micro moment all the time. And what do we want to do with it? So I don't know if you heard that, but I remember, and I'm just going to throw out some names because these people are really influential in my development. But I remember when Jeff Staggs, who was one of my MCC coach mentors, said to me, "You are not your ego." And then I remember Paul Wyman, and a plug for Paul Wyman's work. This is a big deal for coaches. If coaches want to really take their coaching to the next level to help clients discover all of the parts within themselves that are driving behavior, to unhook from our primary parts that are like off leash, to discover new parts that want to come out of the shadows. Paul Wyman trains coaches on a process called inner team dialogue. It has been singularly the most impactful technique that I bring into my coaching, which then leads me to what I love seeing is clients discover that they are not their primary part, that they are not their responsible part, that they are not their pusher part, that they have parts within them, the playful part, the realistic part, the optimist, the relaxed, all of these parts, and all of these parts are perfect with histories and energies within us, and them discovering the energies, and that they have the agency to turn up and turn down these different energies that then drive behavior, that they don't have to think through a 10-step process that they learned in some development class of how do I do this, that they energetically bring the parts that need to be brought forth for that context and situation. So seeing those light bulbs go off and the agency that comes from it is incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah. So you mentioned that's from Paul Wyman.
Wyman, W-Y-M-A-N. It's called Inner Team Dialogue.
Team Dialogue. Okay.
He does coach training, and it is ridiculously inexpensive for what you get. But any coach who's looking for actual coaching techniques for them, even for themselves and others, and it's not like I'm not going to call it like a toolbox, like, and here's another like meditation or thing. And I love those, by the way, but this gets at understanding that we are made up of many parts that have different energies. And the coaching I do is, this is the true nature, is nurturing all of those parts for their fullest expression, that we can be an agency and balance them.
Wonderful. And I will be sharing and linking out below the YouTube video here for all of these concepts that Nikki is sharing, because I'm sure some of our chapter members will want to check out Inner Team Dialogue. You've talked a little bit about vertical development, and what we haven't touched on quite yet is Enneagram. So I'm familiar with Enneagram. I'm actually a 7. What number are you?
I'm a 1-to-1 7. So that's my subtype, if you know your subtype too.
I don't like the wing thing. I don't really understand how that works. I will link to an Enneagram quiz below this video as well. If you want to check out what number you are, maybe it'll have some more value for you if you know what number you are. But tell me a little bit more, Nikki, about how you utilize or how you use the Enneagram as a tool when you're working with clients.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to take one step back real quick and just put another plug in for, it's called Growth Edge Coaching. It's with Jennifer Garvey Berger, who is a protege of Robert Keegan. Robert Keegan is one of the main thought leaders. He's a researcher at Harvard who developed one of many adult development theory stage. And that program teaches you how to ask different questions that get at what stage of development somebody is, that then helps them change how they see themselves and how they see the world. And the community I meet, like I have now friends in China, in Switzerland, in the UK, in South America. So it's another wonderful way to grow how we help clients. Okay, then now the Enneagram.
You've got lots of tools. I'm loving all of these tools.
Yeah, yeah, and I would say it's just there are ways there are ways that I think about helping not just my clients, but myself come back to my inner nature. So this comes back to, I see myself as a developmental coach, less of a performance coach. It's developmental is coming back into who we are. And Enneagram is one way to do that. The Enneagram at its most fundamental level is a map of human development. So it's not a label. A lot of people might, I've heard this and I love it. It doesn't put you in a box. It shows you the box you're already in. So it's a way that you can start to do inner work, because it shows you the different growth paths and your hooks and your personality. They call it defense mechanisms that get in your way of growing.
Interesting.
And I would say, so the other thing, just as like I feel a responsibility to make sure I say this, is even the best tests out there are only 80% accurate. And the reason why that's true is because there's 9 types, but there's 3 instincts within each type. So there's really 27. And so if you are certain instincts, the test may come back as thinking you're a different type. And so I say always hold it really lightly. If you take the test, because it's a map of development, the way I describe it is almost imagine like that's the map of a city you think you're in. So you think you're a 7, take that 7 map and start to observe yourself using the map. If you notice that those patterns aren't really true, then you might have the wrong map. And then try on the next map and then the next map until you're like, oh, this feels true. We know we've landed on our type when we have an emperor has no clothes moment. If you know what that metaphor is, this moment where it's like we feel so almost like vulnerable, like everybody has been seeing these kind of like shadow, not happy behaviors in ways that I've been, but I haven't. And so it's one of those moments of like, ugh.
Interesting. I haven't heard Enneagram described in that way or utilized, I guess, in that way before. But I do know it is a tool that folks tend to use, especially in the business coaching space. I find that very interesting. I've heard of Colby and Enneagram used in business coaching, whereas outside of that niche, like health and wellness, there might be other things that are being used. And we've talked about some of those with our interviews in the past. So thank you for sharing yet another way we can develop ourselves and understand what we bring to the table in terms of our potential. I know we've met, Nikki, before at both the Center for Coaching and Organizations, but there was an event that they hosted and that's how we first met. But you also have participated in ICF Minnesota events. So tell me a little bit about how has that improved either your life, your development as a coach to participate in ICF Minnesota?
A lot of times I think about it just in there's the like content, like what is the actual subject matter, which has been useful, definitely. But that comes second to the people I've met. And the community in ICF is incredible. And so this comes back to how do we grow and how do we help others grow? And the more we can be in community, the more we can help our clients grow because we're growing ourselves. And so that's been, in my experience, the biggest benefit to everything.
Awesome. And thank you for sharing that. We have heard from some other members as well that that's what they value the most about being members is being a part of that coaching community, hearing more about how we're developing and growing and supporting our clients. So definitely, I agree with you 100%. That's one of the best things about being part of the local chapter here. Now, I love to end these interviews, Nikki. We've learned so much about you, Courageous Roots Development, the type of coaching you offer, and the tools and resources you rely upon to support your clients. But I always like to learn the things that we don't see out on paper when we're looking you up or checking out your website or things like that. So what are 3 things we may not know about you that you have out there publicly, but you think we should know in terms of who you are as an individual?
Who I am as an individual. I think probably the first thing that I don't kind of put as a headline out in Webland is that my spirituality and bringing forward my client's spirituality is a huge part of what I do and how I work. And even the background to that is how I work and what I do, which you won't see if you read anything, is just through this lens of polarities and balance. And the individual and the collective, the doing and the being, the talking and the listening, the rational cognitive mind and the spirituality part of it. And so from that lens of balance, that is how any sort of creation happens. And so that's something I very much bring forward into my coaching is helping my clients tap into their own spirituality and allowing that to be a guide as they explore what they want. So that's the first.
Wonderful.
The second that you would not know if you went out at any site probably is that I am a mom to 4 young boys.
That's a full house.
And it's fun. It's really fun because they'll put on like a piece of paper. We were going on a vacation and everybody got to put their wish list. And they, as a joke, put under mine leadership. What we're gonna do. But but they have informed how I see and how I do coaching all the time. Because of this parts work, they show me the parts that I need to integrate, which then show up for my clients. And then I think the last one that you would not know about me is that I am a recovering optimist. So I used to be I'm going to call it almost a junkie for anything strengths-based, Gallup, Marcus Buckingham, positive psychology, all of those things. And those have a place. I cannot emphasize this enough. Think about that as the canopy. And that, from my personality perspective, I loved, because a 7 doesn't want to be in pain. A 7 tries to seek pleasure and fun. Every type does this to some degree, but 7s, it's on overdrive. So the last thing to know about me is I'm on a little bit of a mission to help our community see that balance is necessary. That it's not just about setting purpose statements and soaring with our strengths, that it's necessary to also do this root work of not being afraid of emotions like fear, sadness, and anger, and not being afraid of our shadow side, because all of those parts are perfect. And when we can integrate them, that we will actually see the fullest expression of the canopy. So I'm on a little bit of a mission.
Recovering optimist. I must say that's the first time I've heard of that. And
I know.
As a fellow pleasure-loving 7, I can say yes, it's good to embrace the shadow. So something for me to take back and develop from. So I appreciate you sharing those 3 things about you that we may not know. Now, I haven't given you a chance yet to discuss how can we connect with you, and or what is something coming up for you or your business that you're super excited about talking about.
Ooh, this is exciting. So you can find me at www.courageousroots.com. And what you'll see on my website is there is an Enneagram parenting retreat. And this is a big one. I would invite any grandparents out there or any really involved uncles out there. So it's through the lens of child development theory and personality theory of how do we really understand what the fears and motivations and drivers are of the kids that we're trying to raise into healthy adults. But through that, we actually learn the same about ourselves, but we do it in a system. And so we coach as a system. I work with a really, really wonderful, talented woman named Claire Williams on this. And so that retreat is October 7th through the 9th. It's in town in Bloomington, Minnesota. So we encourage people just to either stay in their homes or a hotel, but that is something that we're really excited about. Again, October 7th through the 9th. And it's an Enneagram in the family retreat that you can sign up for and check out on my website. And also the other thing, just as a heads up, because I really just believe in this constant learning, that I'm grateful that I know what I know, that on my website, there's a resources page. So if people are just like, I want just good videos or an article to read or a podcast to listen to, I've put my greatest hits list as of today on that for people if they just want to start learning.
Awesome. And it's always good to have resources, especially because you mentioned quite a few resources just in this short conversation we've had today. Did you link out to some of the things we talked about during today's interview? Because I'm happy to link that in our show notes as well.
Yeah, I'll make sure that is in the show notes.
Perfect.
And there's a lot we can do. And so I just like any other 7 out there, I would encourage us to always just ask what would be most useful now. But there's a lot out there that's good.
Awesome. So everyone, I will share everything that Nikki just talked to us about, her Enneagram Parent Retreat. Oh my gosh, it's been so long since some of us have even thought of doing a retreat, much less an in-person one. So this will definitely be a treat. Yeah. For those of you who want to do something in community with others to learn more about how to support your children. So check that out in October. And then I'll also link Nikki's website below this interview. Anything you would like to leave us with, Nikki, in terms of, as we're enjoying wrapping up this interview, are there any final thoughts you would like to leave us with?
I think that the biggest one is that the best thing I believe we can do for our clients is do our own inner work.
Well
and do
said.
that and do that in community.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nikki, for sharing more about your coaching practice and the work that you do here for ICF Minnesota's monthly Meet the Coach interview. If you would like to be featured, this is a benefit offered to our Minnesota members. So if you are not a member, you can attend any of our events for free as a guest. And we have events every month. We do a combination of in-person and virtual events. Our next in-person event is in August. And we do have about, I think it's quarterly virtual events for those of you who still are doing the Zoom mullet. It's okay. You can still participate in ICF Minnesota. I will link below here if you are not a member and if you would like to be featured in an upcoming Meet the Coach interview. This is a benefit for you as part of your membership. So my name is Jenn Espinosa-Goswami. I'm the communications co-chair and the host of this interview. I will see you next month. Take care.